Welcome back to another episode of SmoothBrainEDH, where we make the smoothest plays with the biggest brains. Modern Horizons 3 is here, and we here at SmoothBrainEDH are very excited to play. So let's get right into it and see what everybody brought to the table. First up is Caden on the Necrobloom. This here's an Abzan landfall deck that also uses its graveyard a lot. Caden plans on going wide with a ton of zombies by utilizing his commander and or Field of the Dead. Up next, we have Cameron playing our patron Andrew's deck, Imskir Iron Eater. This Rakdos artifact deck wants to power out treasures and Imskir to gain a ton of value, and then drain out its opponents with aristocrat effects. Up next we have Shelby on Azlask, the Swelling Surge. This is an Eldrazi deck that focuses mostly on spawns and scions, and it wants to power out as many of those little dudes as possible, get a ton of experience counters, and then activate Azlask for the kill. And now last but not least we have Sam on Arna Kennerüd. This is an Esper Voltron deck that wants to get non-token aura and equipments onto Arna, so she can attack, copy them, and alpha strike Sam's opponents. We're about to hop right into the game, but before that, go ahead and give us a like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of our content. Check out our description too, where we have links to our social media, public Discord server, deck lists, and our Patreon. We're partnered with Dragon Shield, so check out our affiliate link in the description down there too if you're looking to pick up any sleeves, deck boxes, or playmats, and use code SMOOTH5 at checkout for 5% off your entire order. We're also partnered with Ink Gaming, so check out that affiliate link if you're looking for any custom playmats. Also, we've got one more new sponsor to tell you guys about. In fact, I'll let Jason take it from here.
This is Playgroup.gg, a new website for tracking your Commander gameplay statistics. Their website lets you add in your decks to track their individual stats, create custom playgroups to see how your playgroup plays together, record detailed game information like damage from specific players to other players, and even average turn and game length. Playgroup.gg accomplishes this with an integrated life tracker app. Grab the app from Playgroup.gg and install it onto your PC, phone, or tablet. Then add the players into the game to start. If you're using a custom playgroup, you even get to select from a list of players. Every turn and damage dealt is recorded and made available to you on your Playgroup.gg account. When the game is over, you can even fill out a little survey to show how everyone felt about the game. SmoothBrainEDH has been using this for a few months to track our decks, and we have been loving it for our Precon League. Playgroup.gg is at its best when it's tracking your favorite decks that you love to play all the time. But let's say you're not in a league or you just have a million decks you want to track, that's okay because you can still use this data to check how long your turns take, identify play patterns that might be bogging down your games, see which commander decks your opponents like playing against the most, and more. This is a dev dedicated to perfecting their craft with planned features like keeping track of tokens and mana, turn timer notifications, and synchronizing inputs across devices so that when your life total changes on your phone, your buddy sees it on their PC. Head over to Playgroup.gg to download the app and start tracking your elo today.
It looks like Cameron wins the die roll. He'll start off with a mountain and pass to Shelby, who starts off with a Zaggoth Triumph and he'll pass to Sam, who gets to play the new MDFC land, Age-Grace Chapel. The turn is then passed to Caden, and he'll start off with a Snow Swamp, and then cast Quest for the Necropolis, and then pass back to Cameron, who starts off with a basic swamp, then he'll cast Rakdos Signet and pass. Shelby starts off with her Fiend's Tower's land for turn, then he'll tap for 1 and cast Blister Pod, and then pass to Sam. He'll play Reliquary Tower's land for turn, and then cast Arcane Signet and pass to Caden. He'll start off with a Woodland Cemetery as land for turn, and his quest gets a counter. He'll then cast his own Arcane Signet, and then use the Arcane Signet to cast Elvish Reclaimer, and then he passes to Cameron, who starts off with another mountain, then he'll cast Talisman of Indulgence, and then a Mind Stone, and then a Ruby Medallion, and then the turn is passed to Shelby. He'll start off with a Mana Confluence as land for turn, and then tap for 3, and take 1 to cast Catacomb Shifter. The turn is then passed to Sam, and he'll shock in Hollowed Fountain, then tap for 4, and cast Alayla. Then he'll pass the turn to Caden, who starts off with Verdant Catacombs, and he gets another landfall trigger. He'll then tap for 2 and cast a Sack Daddy, and then pass the turn to Cameron. He'll start off by tapping for 5 and casting Inspired Tinkering. He'll exile the top 3 cards of his library and make 3 treasures.
Exile Ancient Copper Dragon, Terminate, and Zorn.
And then thanks to Ruby Medallion, he's able to play a mountain as land for turn, and then sacrifice 2 treasures and tap 3 lands to cast Ancient Copper Dragon for only 5 mana. The turn is then passed to Shelby, and he'll start off by shocking in his own Hollowed Fountain. Then he'll tap for 2 and cast Talisman of Hierarchy, and then for 3, and he takes 1 to his Mana Confluence, and he'll cast his commander, Azlask. Shelby will then swing his Blister Pod at Sam, who just takes the 1. Then the turn is passed to Sam, and he starts off with Nesting Grounds as land for turn. Then he'll tap for 4 and cast Wilfred Mott, then swing 2 in the air at Caden, and then pass to Caden. But he'll stay on instep and fetch with his Verdant Catacombs for a Snow Forest. Then he'll fetch with his Sack Daddy for a Snow Plains. And then he'll sacrifice his Snow Swamp with Elvish Reclaimer and find an Indatha Triumph to the battlefield tapped. This will get his quest a total of 3 more counters. He starts off with a basic Plains and he'll miss a landfall trigger, and then he'll activate his Reclaimer, sacrificing his Snow Forest. This tutors him Underground Mortuary to the battlefield, and his Surveil stays on top, and he gets another landfall trigger. Then he decides, I do not like this board, so he'll tap for 4 and overload a dam. Shelby is first to respond. He'll sacrifice his Scion to get an experience counter. His Catacomb Shifter will also trigger, and he'll scry one to the top. Then Sam also decides to respond to the dam by casting Slip Out the Back, targeting Wilfred Mott. He'll get a +1/+1 counter, and his life is spared. Then the board wipe resolves. Shelby will get 3 more experience counters because his commander does see all that happen, and all his scries will stay on the top from his Catacomb Shifter. And he also gets another Scion from Blisterpod. Alright, then after all that, the turn is passed to Cameron. And he'll start off with an Academy Manufactor. Then he'll tap for Rakdos and cast his commander, Imskir Iron Eater. Upon ETB, Cameron has 6 artifacts, so he'll draw 3 and lose 3. After that happens, he'll cast a Professional Facebreaker, and then a pair of Lightning Greaves. Imskir will put on his pair of Light Up Sketchers, and then Cameron moves to combat and hits Caden for 5 commander for blowing up his Ancient Copper Dragon. And for connecting with one of his opponents, Academy Manufactor and Professional Facebreaker will create Cameron a treasure, a food, and a clue. The treasure is immediately sacrificed to cast the Monkey Man, and then the turn is passed to Shelby. He'll start off by moving to combat and hitting Sam for 1 with his Scion. Then post-combat, he'll sack the Scion and tap for 2 more to cast Scion Summoner and get a Scion. That was a lot of the word Scion. The turn is then passed to Sam. Wilfred will phase in, and then on upkeep he'll trigger, so he gets a time counter, and Sam looks at the top card of his library, and he puts in a Pip-Boy 3000. After this, he'll tap for 5 and cast his commander, Arna. Then he'll move to combat and swing Wilfred at Cameron. Bro is modified, so when he attacks, Arna triggers, and he'll get an extra +1/+1 counter and time counter. There are no blocks from Cameron, so he'll just take 4. And then the turn is passed to Caden. He'll start off by tapping for 4 and casting the Necrobloom. Then he'll pay a single black mana to sacrifice his quest and get Cameron's Ancient Copper Dragon. He'll then play a Yavimaya land for turn, and then pass the turn as he makes his 0/1 plant token. Cameron will then tap for 3 and cast the RMS Titanic. Imskir will then become the captain of the Titanic, and then Cameron will attempt to equip the Lightning Greaves over to the Titanic. And Shelby responds to the equip by casting Ugin's Binding, targeting the RMS Titanic. So it's bounced to Cameron's hand. After this, he'll recast the RMS Titanic, crew it with Ragavan and Academy Manufactor, and then attempt to move the Greaves again. It resolves this time. Cameron will then move to combat and swing the Titanic at Shelby and Professional Facebreaker at Sam. Neither can block, so they just take their damage. A couple triggers go on the stack. To start off, Facebreaker sees 2 players get hit, so it'll make 2 treasures, 2 foods, and 2 clues. Then he'll sacrifice the Titanic and create 7 treasures, 7 foods, and 7 clues. Post-combat, he'll tap his last land and sack 5 treasures to cast Marionette Master. When she ETBs, she gets 3 1/1 counters. Greaves are then moved over to her, and then the turn is passed to Shelby, where he'll start off by tapping for 3 and evoking a Null Drifter. Oh, well, you see, Null Drifter, even when evoked, CMC is still 7. And Ugin's Binding is in the graveyard. So yeah, a 7 mana value colorless spell is cast, so Ugin's Binding will exile itself and effectively C-Rift all of Shelby's opponents. So that goes on the stack, and also a draw 2 for Shelby. The draw 2 will resolve, and then in response to the Ugin's Binding, Cameron will sacrifice 4 treasures to crack 2 clue tokens. This will put 6 Marionette Master triggers on the stack. 2 are pointed at each Caden, Sam, and Shelby, so they'll all lose 8, and then the Ugin's Binding will resolve. Then Null Drifter will hit the field and immediately die. Shelby will play a tapped Temple Garden, then swing for 3 at Cameron, and then pass the turn. Sam will start off by recasting his Arcane Signet. Then he'll tap for 2 and cast Emperor of Bones. Then he moves through combat, and Emperor of Bones will exile his Alayla, and then he'll pass the turn to Caden, who starts off by recasting his Arcane Signet. Then he'll cast a Crucible of Worlds, and then an Aftermath Analyst, and he'll mill 3 upon ETB.
Idol of Oblivion, Charismatic Conqueror, Exploration Bound.
He'll then play Verdant Catacombs as land for turn from his graveyard, and then he'll pass to Cameron, who plays another mountain, and then he'll recast Mind Stone, then Rakdos Signet, then his Talisman, then Lightning Greaves, and then he'll cast Ragavan and take 1 to his Talisman. Monkey is then booted and sent at Shelby. Upon connecting, Shelby will exile a forest and Cameron creates a treasure. And then the turn is passed. Shelby starts off with a Misty Rainforest, and he immediately fetches with it for an untapped Stomping Ground. Then he'll tap for 5 and cast Spawn Gang Commander. Upon casting it, he gets to create 3 0/1 spawns. Then he'll move to combat and swing for 3 at Cameron again, who cannot block it. Post-combat, Shelby will sacrifice his Scion for a colorless mana and then tap for one more, and then sacrifice Scion Summoner to activate Spawn Gang Commander to attempt to kill Emperor of Bones. Sam will respond though with a not dead after all. So when it dies, it hits the battlefield again with a Wicked Roll, and then the turn is passed to Sam. He'll start by casting Rune of Mortality on Emperor. He draws a card on ETB, then plays Monumental Henge as land for turn. After this, he'll tap for 4 and cast Solemn Simulacrum. And Sad Sam will find Real Sam, the darkest island I have ever seen. He'll then move to combat, and Emperor of Bones will exile Charismatic Conqueror. Cameron is then hit for 3, and then the turn is passed. Caden starts his turn off with the Necrobloom. He'll then play a Prismatic Vista as land for turn, and he now has 7 different land types, so he gets a 2/2 zombie. He'll then just pass the turn to Cameron, and since it got bounced to his hand earlier, he'll tap for 5 and cast Ancient Copper Dragon, and immediately equip Lightning Reaves. 6 is swung at Sam, who can't block it, so he takes 6, and Cameron gets to roll a d20. It's a 3. So he only makes 3 treasure tokens. Cameron is then able to just tap for Rakdos again to cast Imskir Iron Eater again. He has 9 artifacts, so on ETB he'll draw 4 and lose 4. Then Cameron decides to go full heal mode and drops Damnation. Shelby responds by tapping for 2 and then sacrificing one of his spawns to ping Cameron for 2. He'll then sacrifice his 2 spawns for 2 colorless, and then sacrifice his Spawn Gang Commander to itself to deal an additional 2 to him. Then priority from Damnation goes to Caden. He'll respond by fetching with Verdant Catacombs for a Shadowy Backstreet. Then with the Surveil trigger on the stack, he'll fetch with his Prismatic Vista, and find a forest to the battlefield. Surveil will put Undergrowth Stadium into the bin, and yes, creatures are made, but with a looming Damnation, I don't think it matters all that much. Caden will then pay 4 and sacrifice Aftermath Analyst, and this will return 5 lands from his graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Then finally the Damnation will resolve and all creatures are destroyed. Sam will draw a card when his Sad Sam dies, and then when his Wicked Roll hits the yard, each of his opponents lose a life. Cameron will then pass the turn and he discards Basalt Monolith on cleanup, and then we'll move to Shelby's turn, where he'll start off with a Wooded Foothills as land for turn, and then he'll tap for 5 and cast Dread Drone. When it ETBs, he makes 2 spawns. And then he passes the turn to Sam. And this turn, Sam will recast Arna. He then passes the turn to Caden, who also just recasts his commander. Then he'll tap for 3 and cast Tireless Provisioner, and after that resolves, he'll double fetch with Verdant Catacombs and Prismatic Vista. This finds him Lush Portico and a forest. Surveil stays on top, and he gets 2 treasures and 2 zombies. Then he'll play Verdant Catacombs from graveyard, and immediately fetch with it. And this finds him a Snow Forest, which gets him an additional 2 zombies and treasures. Then he casually drops Elishnorn. Yeah, that resolves. He'll pass the turn to Cameron after that. And Cameron starts off with a basic swamp. He'll then recast his Marionette Master, but Sam will Arcane Denial it. After this, Cameron casts Unexpected Windfall, discarding a Star Compass. So he draws 2 and makes 2 treasures. The turn is then passed to Shelby, and on his upkeep, Arcane Denial draws will happen. Shelby's kind of shut out of the game because of an Elishnorn, so he'll just cast an Awakening Zone and pass to Sam. Sam will start off by casting an Orzhov Signet. Then he'll recast his good old Pip-Boy 3000. And then he equips it to Arna. Then he'll move to combat and swing Arna at Cameron. Attack triggers. First, Sam will untap 2 lands with his Pip-Boy 3000. Then Arna equips herself with a second Pip-Boy. A token one this time. Post-combat, Sam will tap for 4 and cast Copy Crook. He would like his own Elishnorn. So yeah, it resolves, and then the turn is passed to Caden. He'll start off with a Verdant Catacombs from graveyard. Landfall triggers will create him a zombie and a food token. Then he'll move to combat, and according to my calculations, just the zombies will be enough to kill Cameron, but Caden wants to play it safe and sends an additional 5 with Tireless Provisioner and his commander. Cameron sees that he is very dead here, but as a Rakdos player does, he wants to make a spectacle upon going out, so he'll sack his last 2 treasures and cast Rakdos Charm to have each of his opponent's creatures deal 1 damage to their controller. It didn't do as much damage as he had hoped, but he dies with a smile on his face. The turn is then passed to Shelby, and on upkeep, his Eldrazi spawn that is created is literally languished upon creation. Shelby's not stressed though, because he'll tap for 4 and overload a Drat. That is board wipe number 4 of this game. Caden responds by fetching with Verdant Catacombs for a tapped Temple Garden. He'll make another food token. And then the darn will resolve. Sam does accidentally destroy his Pip-Boys as well, but we'll catch that here in a second. And then the turn is passed to Sam. He'll start off with the Talisman of Dominance. Pip-Boys are then remembered. And then he'll tap for 7 and recast Arna. He'll then pass the turn, but Caden stops on instep to crack both of his foods and gain 6 life. Caden will then cast Pillage the Bog. This will let him look at the top 30 cards of his library and put one to his hand. Shelby says, no, that's practically a tutor. Arcane Denial. So it's countered. Then after this, Caden will recast the Necrobloom. Verdant Catacombs is then played from the yard, and a zombie is made. The turn is then passed to Shelby, and on upkeep, Arcane Denial draws will happen, and a spawn is made. After this, Shelby taps for 5 and recasts Azlask. Then, with the help of his spawn, he'll cast a Brood Warden, and then pass the turn to Sam. Oh yeah, and since he sacrificed that spawn, he gets another experience counter. Now on Sam's turn, he starts off with a Swamp, then a Pip-Boy is equipped, then a Pip-Boy is equipped, then he'll cast Sword of Forge and Frontier, and equip it to Arna. Sam will then move to combat and swing Arna at Caden. Attack triggers. Sam will resolve the Pip-Boys first, he'll put a +1/+1 counter on Arna and then untap 2 lands, and then Arna's trigger will resolve, doubling her counters and creating an additional Pip-Boy and Sword of Forge and Frontier. Caden cannot block this, so he'll take the 10, and it is lifelink, so Sam also gains 10. And upon connecting, there's 2 sword triggers, so Sam exiles the top 4 cards of his library, and he can play 2 additional lands this turn.
Off the first one, I got Dimir Signet and Underground Seed. Second one, Ondu Knotmaster and Glyph Elemental.
Moving to post-combat, Sam will start off by bestowing Glyph Elemental onto Arna. Then he'll play Underground Sea from exile as his second land drop this turn, and the Glyph Elemental will get a 1/1 counter. Sam will then throw a line to Arna and put 2 +1/+1 counters on her, and put Ondu Knotmaster onto an adventure. Then the turn is passed to Caden. And he'll start off with Mondrak, Glory Dominus, then he'll play Field of the Dead as lane for turn and make 4 2/2 zombies. He'll then fetch with his Verdant Catacombs for a tapped Godless Shrine and make 4 more zombies. After this, he'll cast Braids, Arisen Nightmare. Then he moves to combat and swings for 4 at Sam, who just takes it. Caden will then move to his end step and sacrifice one of his zombies to Braids, and then Sam and Shelby both decline, so Caden draws 2, and they each lose 2 life. The turn is then passed to Shelby, and he makes a spawn. Unfortunately for him though, his recent draws have not been good, so he'll just play a Verdant Catacombs as lane for turn. He'll then pay Wooburg and activate his commander. So all his creatures will get +5/+5 till end of turn, and his little spawn that can't attack gets Annihilator and Indestructible. Shelby will then move to combat and swing 16 at Sam, who just has to take it. That's all Shelby can do, so he'll just pass the turn. And on his turn, Sam will start off with a Deserted Beach, and then he'll drop Anointed Procession. He'll then cast Mask of Riddles and equip it. Then he moves to combat and swings at Caden. Attack triggers. Pip-Boys will each put 1 counter on Arna. Then Arna's trigger will resolve, doubling her own counters. And then thanks to Anointed Procession, she'll be equipped with 2 additional token copies of Pip-Boy, Sword of Forge and Frontier, Glyph Elemental, and the Mask of Riddles. Alright, let's tally up this punch. 4 power commander, 14 counters, 4 Swords of Forge and Frontier, and 2 counters on a Glyph Elemental. That is 28 damage that Caden will take, and Sam will gain that much. So yeah, Caden is extra super dead, and Shelby thinks he still has a chance at this though. There's a few damage triggers. First off, Sam will draw 3 from his masks, and Sam gets 4 Forge and Frontier triggers. He only resolves 3 of them though for some reason.
Dog Umbra, Niganjo from the first one, Vault of Champions, Steal the Godhead for the second one, and Anguish Unmaking and...
Oh, sorry guys. Cameron starts talking over Sam at this point, so you guys don't get to hear that one. Just kidding, it's a Stroke of Midnight. Yeah, and it's at this point that Sam will just play the Aganjo and Vault of Champions from exile as extra land drops, and then he'll Anguished Unmaking Azlask, and Shelby is now 99% sure he is not winning this game. He goes to his turn, top card of his library is a land, and yeah, he'll just concede there. Sam's got it. So congratulations to Sam and Arna, our winners. Well, what an exciting game. That one actually went back and forth quite a lot. That game was actually surprisingly quick for one with 4 board wipes. Anyways, let us know what you guys thought down in the comments below. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. But that's enough for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this Modern Horizons 3 content. I hope you all have a smooth day.